Welcome to Read and Learn English. We are diving into My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry to unlock natural expressions and boost your fluency. In this video, I'll read a section of Chapter 1 aloud for your listening practice. Then I'll unpack key English vocabulary, idioms, and grammar for you. After that, I'll continue reading to build your English comprehension and speaking skills. Hello everyone, I'm Tanya. You're watching English with Speaker. Let's dive into this English lesson. Every 7-year-old deserves a superhero. That's just how it is. Anyone who doesn't agree needs their head examined. That's what Elsa's granny says, at least. Elsa is 7, going on 8. She knows she isn't especially good at being 7. She knows she's different. Her headmaster says she needs to fall into line in order to achieve a better fit with her peers. Other adults describe her as very grown up for her age. Elsa knows this is just another way of saying massively annoying for her age, because they only tend to say this when she corrects them for mispronouncing déjà vu or not being able to tell the difference between me and I at the end of a sentence. Smartasses usually can't, hence the grown-up for her age comment, generally said with a strained smile at her parents. As if she has a mental impairment, as if Elsa has shown them up by not being totally thick just because she's 7. And that's why she doesn't have any friends except Granny. Because all the other 7-year-olds in her school are as idiotic as 7-year-olds tend to be. But Elsa's different. She shouldn't take any notice of what those Muppets think, says Granny. Because all the best people are different. Look at superheroes. After all, if superpowers were normal, everyone would have them. Excellent. So we will start with the word deserve. Deserve. When you deserve something, it means you have earned it or it is right for you to have it. So in this case, the author means every child should have a superhero, like it's their right. For example, you may say, after all that hard work, you deserve a long holiday. The next one is that's just how it is. That's just how it is. This is a very common and natural phrase, and we use it when we want to say, that's the reality. This is the situation, and we can't change it. It's a way to accept something. For example, the bus has been late again. Well, that's just how it is sometimes. Next one is an idiom, needs their head examined. Needs their head examined. So we say it when someone is acting very foolishly or doing something that seems crazy or illogical. But you should keep in mind that it is often used in a joking way. For example, he decided to climb Mount Everest in flip-flops. He needs his head examined. Going on 8. Going on 8. This phrase tells us that something is very close to turning 8 years old. They aren't 8 yet, but their birthday is coming soon. And we can use it for any age. We will actually meet it later, so for now I will not give you any examples. Next one is fall into line. Fall into line. That is a very useful phrase of verb. It means to start behaving according to the rules or expectations of a group, especially after you've been doing something different. In this case, we have the headmaster who says and who wants Elsa to be like the other children. Maybe at work you may have new rules introduced recently, and you may say, after the new rules, everyone had to fall into line and work extra hours. Then a better fit. A better fit. This means to be more suitable or compatible with something or someone. So it means that Elsa should be more like the other kids. And we can see these kids in the word peers. But be careful, because peers is generally a word that means people who are the same age as you or who have a similar social position or ability. So it's not necessarily kids at school. For you, it can be people at work, they're your peers, or people in your maybe hobby club, they are your peers there. Very grown up for her age. This is expression that describes a child who acts, thinks, or speaks like an adult rather than a child of their age. It can be a compliment, but here it is used to say that adults find Elsa a bit challenging. Not all adults, some of them. Massively annoying, massively annoying. While I'm sure that you understand this phrase, I want to point your attention to the word massively. This is an intensifier. It means very, very, or extremely. Yeah. So you cannot use it, you only use it with extreme adjectives. That's why massively annoying or extremely annoying. Yeah, it means extremely annoying. Déjà vu. Déjà vu, this is a French phrase that English speakers also use. As you know, there are many, many words in English that came from French. And so déjà vu describes that strange feeling you get when you experience something new, but it feels like you've already experienced it before. Smart asses. Smart asses, that is an informal and a slightly rude word, so be careful with it. This is a word for someone who thinks they're very clever and likes to show it off in an annoying way, so like they're boasting. And you may hear it in a casual conversation. Then we have hence. Smart asses usually can't. Hence. Hence is a slightly more formal connecting word, and it means therefore or for this reason. So smart asses usually can't. For this reason, yeah, or hence. Then we have with a strained smile, but we're interested in the word strained, strained. So if a smile is strained, it means forced or uncomfortable. So it's not natural or happy. It's like when someone makes you smile against your will. For example, for photographs. Shown them up. Shown them up. So this is a phrasal verb, and it means to make someone look bad or embarrassed by being clearly better than them. So Elsa's intelligence makes the adults feel a bit foolish. And then totally thick. Thick here is a very informal slang for stupid or unintelligent. All the best people are different and Muppets. All the best people are different in terms of vocabulary. There is nothing to talk about, but this is a very important message and a very wise message from Granny. It means that it's good and valuable to be unique and not exactly like everyone else. And Muppets is an informal and slightly insulting way to mean silly or unimportant people. Let's have a look at this sentence. As if Elsa has shown them up by not being totally thick just because she's 7. Notice the structure here. The clause starts with as if, and as if clause introduces a hypothetical or unreal comparison. And it usually expresses how things appear rather than how they necessarily are, how they really are. Granny is 77 years old, going on 78. She's not very good at it either. You can tell she's old because her face looks like newspapers stuffed into wet shoes, but no one ever accuses Granny of being grown up for her age. Perky, people sometimes say to Elsa's mom, looking either fairly worried or fairly angry, as Mom sighs and asks how much she owes for the damages. Or when Granny's smoking at the hospital sets the fire alarm off and she starts ranting and raving about how everything has to be so bloody politically correct these days, when the security guards make her extinguish her cigarette. Or that time she made a snowman in Brit Mary and Kent's garden right under their balcony and dressed it up in grown up clothes so it looked as if a person had fallen from the roof. Or that time those pre-men wearing spectacles started ringing all the doorbells and wanted to talk about God and Jesus and heaven, and Granny stood on her balcony with dressing gown flapping over, shooting at them with her paintball gun, and Brit Marie couldn't quite decide if she was most annoyed about the paintball gun thing or the not wearing anything under the dressing gown thing. But she reported both to the police just to be on the safe side. Those are the times, Elsa supposes, that people find Granny perky for her age. They also say that Granny is mad, but in actual fact, she's a genius. It's just that she's a bit of a crackpot at the same time. She used to be a doctor and she won prizes, and journalists wrote articles about her. And she went to all those most terrible places in the world when everyone else was getting out. She saved lives and fought evil everywhere on earth, as superheroes do. But one day, someone decided she was too old to save lives, even if Elsa quite strongly suspected what they really meant by too old was too crazy. Granny refers to this person as society and says it's only because everything has to be so bloody politically correct nowadays that she's no longer allowed to make incisions in people. And that it was really mainly about society getting so bleeding fussy about the smoking ban in the operating theaters and who could work under those sorts of conditions. So now she's mainly at home driving Brit Marie and Mom around the bend. Brit Marie is Granny's neighbor. Mom is Elsa's mom. And really, Brit Marie is also Elsa's mom's neighbor because Elsa's mom lives next door to Elsa's granny. And Elsa obviously also lives next door to Granny because Elsa lives with her mom. Except every other weekend when she lives with Dad and Lisette. And of course, George is also Granny's neighbor because he lives with Mom. It's a bit all over the place. Well, let's move on to vocabulary and grammar. As I promised you, we have already met a new expression that we have just discussed after our first section. Going on 78. Going on 78. This means that Granny is almost 78 years old and she's approaching that age very soon. So it's a very natural way to talk about someone's age when they're close to a birthday. Face looks like newspaper stuffed into wet shoes. Well, this is a very creative and vivid simile. A simile is a comparison between two different things using like or as. And here it is a humorous and slightly unflattering way to describe Granny's wrinkled face. I'm sure you can see wrinkles on my face too. No, under my eyes. When I smile. Yeah. But these are all good wrinkles. I love my wrinkles. So, for us, it paints a strong picture. Perky, perky. We met this word in this section several times. And perky is an adjective that usually describes someone who is cheerful, lively, and energetic. And we can see that Granny is described as bright and full of life. So it is a positive description. Then sets the fire alarm off, sets the fire alarm off. Set off is a phrasal verb and it means to cause something to start or activate. For example, an alarm, but also a chain of events. Starts ranting, starts ranting. To rant means to speak or shout at length in an angry, passionate, or critical way. And so Granny gets very passionate and angry about politics. And the next sentence says it all. Everything has to be so bloody politically correct these days. Bloody, be careful with this word because it's a very common informal intensifier in British English. It is similar to very or extreme, but it may sound a bit rude in some contexts. But Granny uses it to show her strong frustration. And then politically correct, this is an expression that refers to language or behavior that avoids offending or disadvantaging any group of people. So Granny is complaining that people are too sensitive or careful about what they say. Make her extinguish her cigarette. Extinguish is a more formal verb, meaning to put out a fire or a light. And here it means to put out her cigarette. So put out is more common for spoken English, but if you say extinguish, it's correct, just more formal. Prim men wearing spectacles. Spectacles are glasses. Basically, it's a more formal word for glasses. And prim is an adjective, so it describes someone who is very formal, proper, and perhaps a little stiff, like that. And such people, prim people, are usually easily shocked by anything that isn't perfectly conventional. So here we got the description of prim men who would come to houses and talk about God, Jesus, and etc. Dressing gown flapping open. That's a very funny description and also of a very brave woman. So dressing gown is a loose robe worn at home and typically over pajamas or underwear, especially when getting ready to go to bed or relaxing. In American English, it is often called a bathrobe. And then flapping open, first of all, let's talk about the verb flap. Flap means to move quickly, like that, up and down, side to side. Up and down, side to side. So you can imagine a long dressing gown, the wind is blowing, and then this dressing gown goes up and down, side to side. Yeah, because it is also usually something that is loose, and so when the granny's dressing gown was was flapping, yeah, we also see the word open, so it would open some parts of her body. Then we have painted ball gown thing and not wearing anything under the dressing gown thing. Thing here is used very informally as a placeholder. So when the speaker cannot remember the exact word or wants to be vague, like doesn't want to be precise, or refers to an idea or situation, they use this word thing. It makes the language sound very casual and conversational. A bit of a crackpot. A bit of a crackpot, that is an informal expression for someone who is eccentric, crazy, or has strange ideas like our granny here. And it is usually used playfully to describe someone who is unconventional. Again, playfully. It's not like bad. Yeah, it's not negative. Playful. A genius is someone with exceptional intellectual or creative power. And the text shows us that while some think she's a crackpot, yeah, like eccentric, crazy, and has strange ideas, she's actually incredibly smart. All the most terrible places in the world. Here we can see a superlative adjective phrase. It emphasizes that Granny traveled to the absolute worst and most dangerous locations. If you decide to continue reading the book, you will understand where she went to and what she did. Fought evil everywhere on earth. Fought evil. Fought evil means to actively work against what is morally wrong or bad. Yet this highlights that Granny has a heroic nature. She's a hero, and it links her to a superhero. Too old to save lives and too crazy. Too old to save lives. So here you can see a structure. To plus an adjective, to plus a verb. meaning something is so, then you use an adjective, that it cannot a verb. In this case, Granny was too old to be able to save lives. Society getting so bleeding fussy. Society, here we can see it with a capital S, and it refers to people in general or the general public. Then bleeding fussy, again, bleeding is a very informal British intensifier, similar to bloody, and it makes fussy stronger. Fussy means over concerned with small details, also difficult to please or easily bothered. So bleeding fussy means extremely easily bothered. Who could work under those sorts of conditions? Under those sorts of conditions. Under conditions. First of all, this is a set expression so you can remember it, but also you can put anything you need between under and conditions. So in this case, we have those sorts of, under those sorts of conditions. This refers to the situation or environment in which something happens. And Granny is highlighting how difficult or unreasonable the rules were. Then we have two new characters, Brit Marie and Mum. Brit Marie is their neighbor. Mum is Elsa's mum and Granny's daughter. So driving Brit Marie and Mum around the bend. Driving someone around the bend, that is an idiom. It means to annoy someone very much, to make them extremely frustrated, or even to make them crazy. So Granny's actions frustrate Brit Marie and Mum. Then we will take a step back and go back to the sentence prim men wearing spectacles who had fallen from the roof. So prim men wearing spectacles. Wearing acts here as a reduced relative clause. It means prim men who were wearing spectacles. First of all, let's recap what a relative clause is. I hope that you do remember what it is. So it is a part of a sentence that gives more information about a noun. It usually starts with words like who, which, that, where, when, whose, and so on. So the man who is wearing a blue shirt is my brother, for example. But here we have a reduced relative clause. A reduced relative clause is simply a shorter version of a relative clause. We reduce it by removing the relative pronoun who, which, where, why, when, and so on. And the form of the verb to be, we also remove it. So the main rule to remember is you can often reduce a relative clause when the verb in the clause is in a continuous form or in the passive voice. For example, first of all, verb ing. The student who is sitting at the front is very clever. The student sitting at the front is very clever. So you see, we removed who, removed is, and are just left with sitting. The student sitting at the front is very clever. Now let me give you an example with past participle. The book, which was written by Fredrik Backman, is excellent. The book written by Fredrik Backman is excellent. Again, we removed which, we removed was, and we're left with written. Moving on. But anyway, to get back to the point, life-saving and driving people nuts are Granny's superpowers, which perhaps makes her a bit of a dysfunctional superhero. Elsa knows this because she looked up dysfunctional on Wikipedia. People of Granny's age describe Wikipedia as an encyclopedia, but on the net. Encyclopedias are what Elsa describes as Wikipedia, but analog. Elsa has checked dysfunctional in both places, and it means that something is not quite functioning as it's supposed to. Which is one of Elsa's favorite things about her granny. But maybe not today, because it's 1:30 in the morning and Elsa is fairly tired and would really like to go back to bed. Except that's not going to happen, because Granny's been throwing turds at a policeman. It's a little complicated. I know that there is one part of page left. We will go back to that, but since it's kind of beginning of half of the first chapter, we will work on the vocabulary here. Life-saving and driving people nuts. So life-saving, this is an adjective, and it means something that saves someone's life or is extremely important for survival. And then we have driving people nuts. That is an idiom that is similar to driving someone around the bend from the previous page. And it means to make someone extremely annoyed, frustrated, or even crazy. Very common expression. Dysfunctional. Dysfunctional. Well, it was actually explained in the passage that I just read out, but just in case this is an adjective and it describes something or someone that is not working properly or normally. So it is often used for families, for example, or systems that have problems. And here Elsa realizes that Granny might be considered dysfunctional by others because she doesn't fit in. Then throwing turds at a policeman. First of all, turd is an informal, often offensive word for animal or human feces. So the phrase is used to highlight Granny's extreme, rebellious, and totally inappropriate behavior. It's important to understand the shock value here because she is throwing feces at a policeman, at another person. And then it's a little complicated. It's a little complicated. While this phrase looks super easy, it's a set phrase and it's really useful. So we use it when a situation is difficult to explain, or it has many different parts, or is not straightforward. So it's a polite way to say it's not simple. For example, why didn't you go to the party? Well, it's a little complicated. So maybe you just don't want to get into the details. Yeah. Right, now going back, Elsa looks around the little rectangular room and yawns listlessly, and so widely that she looks like she's trying to swallow her own head. I did tell you not to climb the fence, she mutters, checking her watch. Granny doesn't answer. Elsa takes off her Gryffindor scarf and puts it in her lap. She was born on Boxing Day 7 years ago, almost 8. The same day, some German scientists recorded the strongest ever emission of gamma radiation from a magnetar over the Earth. Admittedly, Elsa doesn't know what a magnetar is, but it's some kind of neutron star. And it sounds a little like Megatron, which is the name of the evil one in Transformers, which is what simpletons who don't read enough quality literature call a children's program. In actual fact, the Transformers are robots, but if you look at it academically, they could also be counted as superheroes. Elsa is very keen on both Transformers and neutron stars, and she imagines that an emission of gamma radiation would look a bit like the time Granny spilled Fanta on Elsa's iPhone and tried to dry it out in the toaster. And Granny says it makes Elsa special to have been born on a day like that. And being special is the best way of being different. Granny is busy distributing small heaps of tobacco all over the wooden table in front of her and rolling them into rustling cigarette papers. I said I told you not to climb the fence. And here we are going to stop and get back to the vocabulary. Yawns listlessly. To yawn is to open your mouth wide and breathe in deeply, usually when you are tired or bored. And listlessly means without energy, enthusiasm, or interest. So she's yawning without energy because she's bored or tired. Then swallow her own head. Of course, that's an exaggeration. Yeah, it is used for humorous effect here. It means that Elsa looks so fed up or annoyed with this situation that she seems like she wishes she could disappear or hide entirely from situation. Then mutter. She mutters. To mutter means to speak in a low voice, often hard to hear, especially when you're annoyed or complaining. And it usually suggests a lack of enthusiasm. Then checking her watch. This is a common action showing impatient or that someone is in a hurry or has an appointment. Takes off her Gryffindor scarf. Takes off means to remove an item of clothing or an accessory and puts it in her lap. Lap is the flat area. Like now I'm sitting, my laps are here. Laps is the flat area formed by the upper part of your legs when you're sitting down. Then we have magnetar and emission of gamma radiation. We're not going to go into the details here. We are not scientists. And magnetar is a scientific term for a type of a neutron star, which has an extremely powerful magnetic field. And if you decide to continue reading this book, you will find out that in this book, this everyday life is mixed with fantasy and some scientific terms. And it shows that Elsa is smart, and she also, as a child, she still imagines the world. She still creates the world around herself. Then emission of gamma radiation, another scientific term. Emission is the release or discharge of something, and gamma radiation is a very energetic type of electromagnetic radiation. Then we have Megatron and Transformers. Megatron is the name villain from the Transformers, and Transformers is a popular franchise about robots that can change into vehicles. Then quality literature. Quality literature. This refers to books or writing that are considered to be of high artistic or intellectual value. And Elsa is being sarcastic here because some adults would consider Transformers to be just a children's program, not quality literature. Then spilled Fanta. Spill means to accidentally cause liquid to flow over the edge of a container or making a mess. And dried out in the toaster. Yeah, they decided to fix a wet iPhone by drying it out in a toaster. Again, it shows us lack of common sense in Granny. Then, special is the best way of being different. Special is the best way of being different. And this is another core message from Granny, reinforcing the idea that being unique and not fitting in is a positive thing and not a negative one. And it's a powerful and encouraging idea for Elsa and, of course, for us. Then distributing small heaps of tobacco. Distributing small heaps of tobacco. Distribute means to give something out to several people or places. And heap is an untidy pile of something. So Granny is making small piles of tobacco. Then rolling them into rustling cigarette papers. Roll means to turn something over and over or to shape into a ball or cylinder. And rustling means soft, muffled sound, like dry leaves moving, like you can think of autumn, dry leaves moving, or paper when you crumble paper, like that. Moving on. Granny makes a snorting sound and searches her pockets of her much too large overcoat for a lighter. She doesn't seem to be taking any of this very seriously. Mainly because she never seems to take anything seriously, except when she wants to smoke and can't find a lighter. It was a tiny little fence, for God's sake, she says breezily. It's nothing to get worked up about. Don't you, for God's sake, me, you're the one who threw shit at the police. Stop fussing. You sound like your mother. Do you have a lighter? I'm 7. How long are you going to use that as an excuse? Until I'm not 7 anymore. Granny mumbles something that sounds like, not a crime to ask, is it? And continues rifling through her pockets. I don't think you can smoke in here, actually, Elsa informs, sounding calmer now and fingering the long rip in the Gryffindor scarf. Of course you can smoke. We'll just open a window. Elsa looks skeptically at the windows. I don't think they're the sort of windows that open. Why not? They've got bars on them. Granny glares with dissatisfaction at the windows and then at Elsa. So now you can't even smoke at the police station. Jesus, It's like being in 1984. Elsa yawns again. Can I borrow your phone? What for? To check something. Where? Online. You invest too much time on that internet stuff. You mean spend. I beg your pardon? What I mean is, you don't use invest in that way. You wouldn't go around saying, I invested 2 hours in reading Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, would you? Granny just rolls her eyes and hands her the phone. Did you ever hear about the girl who blew up because she did too much thinking? The policeman who shuffles into the room looks very, very tired. That's a great dialogue. So, first expression is taking any of this very seriously. Take something seriously means to treat a situation or problem with great importance or gravity. And Granny doesn't seem to care or worry about being told off for climbing the fence. The next one is to find a lighter. Lighter is a small device used to create a flame, usually for lighting cigarettes. Candles also. For God's sake. For God's sake. This is an exclamatory phrase and it is used to express annoyance or frustration or impatience and to emphasize something strongly. So it's quite informal and can sound a bit strong, but it is very common. Like, for God's sake, can you please stop making that noise? To get worked up about. To get worked up about. This is an excellent phrasal verb and it means to become very excited, angry, or upset about something. So, Granny is saying it's not worth getting upset over a small fence. You're the one who threw shit at the police. Shit, that is similar to turds from before. Yeah, that is an offensive and vulgar word for feces. And we can see that Granny has a huge disrespect for authority. Stop fussing. Fussing. To fuss means to show excessive concern or worry about details, and often unnecessarily. So, stop fussing is an informal command to stop worrying or making a big deal out of something. You sound like your mother. It's a common set expression. We usually use it when someone's tone, words, or actions remind you strongly of their parent. And it often implies a negative trait. An excuse is the reason given to justify an action, often to avoid blame. Granny does it a lot in this dialogue, as you can see. Fingering the long rib. Fingering the long rib. To finger something, it is a verb, yet to finger something means you're touching or handling it with your fingers and often repeatedly, gently, or thoughtfully. So it's not usually aggressive. Like here, Elsa has a rip, that is a tear or split in fabric or paper. So there is damage to Elsa's scarf, Gryffindor scarf. Harry Potter fans! Gryffindor scarf. Unfortunately, there is a rip and she's fingering it. So like she gently touches it with her finger, maybe put it inside, like playing with that rip. Glares with dissatisfaction. Glares with dissatisfaction. Glare means to stare at someone in angry or fierce way. And dissatisfaction, that means a feeling of not being pleased or satisfied with something. And then they've got bars on them. They've got bars on them. Bars refers here to metal bars. It is often found on prison cells or some windows to prevent entry or exit. So Elsa is pointing out that the windows are secure and implying that she can't easily open them to smoke. Jesus is an exclamation of surprise, frustration, or annoyance. It is an informal and often used to show strong emotion. And it's like being in 1984. 1984 refers to the famous dystopian novel by George Orwell. And you can find 5 videos based on the first chapter of this book on my channel. The link is here. It's a great novel. I highly recommend reading it. Can I borrow your phone? Borrow means to take and use something belonging to someone else with an intention of returning it. So it's not like you take it forever. You have to return it. And what for? What for is common and informal way to ask why or for what purpose. Then, I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon. This is a polite set phrase used to ask someone to repeat what they just said, um, probably because you didn't hear or understand, or to express mild surprise or a disagreement. Then you wouldn't go around saying. Go around saying is an informal phrase, means to habitually, it's usual for you, yeah, to say something, often repeatedly to many people. Yeah, like you come to many people and you tell the same thing. And Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Harry Potter fans, let me know if you're here in the comments. So this is the first book in the famous Harry Potter series. The girl who blew up because she did too much thinking. Blew up is a phrasal verb and it means to explode or to become very angry and upset. But of course, here she means explode. Granny wants to add this drama. Then we have the policeman who shuffles into the room. He looks very, very tired. So shuffle means to walk by dragging one's feet along the ground without lifting them properly. I am usually annoyed when people walk like that. I understand some, like from time to time when they're tired, but some people normally walk like that. This is my pet peeve. When people don't lift their feet, please lift your feet when you walk. So shuffle, like maybe you will hear the noise now. I want to call my lawyer, Granny demands at once. I want to call my mom, Elsa demands at once. In that case, I want to call my lawyer first, Granny insists. The policeman sits down opposite them and fidgets with a little pile of papers. Your mother is on her way, he says to Elsa with a sigh. Granny makes the sort of dramatic gasp that only Granny knows how to do. Why did you call her? Are you mad? She protests as if the policeman just told her he was going to leave Elsa in the forest to be raised by a pack of wolves. She'll be bloody livid. We have to call the child's legal guardian, the policeman explains calmly. I am also the child's legal guardian. I'm the child's grandmother. Granny fumes, rising slightly out of her chair and shaking her unlit cigarette menacingly. It's 1:30 in the morning. Someone has to take care of the child. Yes, me. I am taking care of the child, she splutters. The policeman makes a fairly strained attempt to gesture amicably across the interrogation room. And how do you feel it's going so far? Granny looks slightly offended. Well, everything was going just fine until you started chasing me. You broke into a zoo. It was a tiny little fence. There's no such thing as a tiny burglary. Granny shrugs and makes a brushing movement over the table as if she thinks they've stretched this out long enough. The policeman notices the cigarette and eyes it dubiously. Oh, come on. I can smoke in here, can't I? He shakes his head sternly. Granny leans forward, looks him deep in the eyes, and smiles. Can't you make an exception? Not even for little old me? Elsa gives Granny a little shove in the side and switches to their secret language. Because Granny and Elsa have a secret language, as all grannies must have with their grandchildren, because by law that's a requirement, says Granny. Or at least it should be. Drop it, Granny. It's like illegal to flirt with policemen. Says who? Well, the police, for starters, Elsa replies. A policeman sits down opposite them and fidgets with a little pile of papers. So fidget means to make small, restless movements with your hands or feet because of nervousness, boredom, or impatience. Then, sort of dramatic gasp. A gasp is a quick, sharp intake of breath, like this is a gasp. Be bloody livid, bloody livid. You already know. Bloody, yeah, this is a British informal intensifier. And then we have livid. Livid means extremely angry. So bloody livid means extremely, incredibly angry. I'm also the child's legal guardian. Legal guardian. A legal guardian is a person who has the legal authority and responsibility to care for another person, especially a child, or like when their parents are unable to do so. And you can be a legal guardian for your elderly parents, for example, when they cannot take care of themselves. Shaking her unlit cigarette menacingly. Menacingly. Menacingly is an adverb and it means in a threatening or dangerous way. So she's shaking the cigarette, Granny is shaking the cigarette in a way that suggests she might cause trouble. Someone has to take care of the child. Take care of is a very common phrasal verb meaning to look after someone or something. Then we have splutters. Splutters. To splutter means to speak quickly and confusedly, especially when you're angry, embarrassed, or choking. So, like, it's a messy, uncontrolled way of speaking. Makes a fairly strained attempt. Fairly means moderately, and strained, you also already know, forced, uncomfortable. Yes, so it's a moderately forced or uncomfortable attempt to do something. Gesture amicably. Gesture means to make a movement with your hand, your arm, your head to express something. And amicably is an adverb and it means friendly, peaceful. So he tries to make, the police officer tries to make a friendly gesture, but it feels forced. Then we have interrogation room. That is a room where suspects are questioned by the police. Everything was going just fine. Going just fine is a common set phrase and it means that a situation was progressing well or without any problems. To chase someone means to pursue someone or something in order to catch them. Think back to Tom and Jerry when Tom would chase Jerry. Sometimes Jerry would chase Tom, right? Don't quite remember. Seems so. You broke into a zoo. Broke into, to break into, is a phrasal verb and it means to enter a building or place illegally and usually by force. Tiny burglary. Tiny is very small, and burglary is a crime of illegally entering a building, with an intention of committing a crime, often theft. Shrugs and makes a brushing movement over the table. To shrug means to raise your shoulders like that, slightly, yet to express indifference or doubt, a lack of knowledge, like, I don't know, or I don't care, well, I'm not sure. So you shrug. Brushing movement, that is a quick, light movement, as if removing dust. So imagine right now I'm sitting at the table and there's dust, and so like, that is the brushing movement. Then we have the word dubiously. Dubiously. When someone does something dubiously, it means they do it in a way that suggests doubt, suspicion, or uncertainty. It can also mean in the way that is questionable and not entirely honest or trustworthy. And in the text, the police notices the cigarette and eyes it dubiously. That means that the policeman looks at Granny's cigarette with doubt and suspicious. So he's not sure if she should be smoking it or should be smoking in the police office. So inside the police office. We have, oh, come on, this is a common exclamatory phrase. Yeah, we use it to express disbelief or impatience again, or when we are annoyed, or when someone is being unreasonable. And can't I is a tag question. So if your intonation goes up, that means that you're not confident in what you just said and you are looking for confirmation. But if your intonation goes down, it means that you are confident and you just like make your sentence, make your statement sound double confident. He shakes his head sternly. Sternly means in a serious or strict manner. So he shakes his head sternly, like, Not even for little old me. Little old me is an idiomatic phrase, and it is used humorously here, of course, in order to see that Granny refers to herself as being innocent and helpless, and she's seeking for special treatment. But I mean, she's being sarcastic, of course. Gives Granny a little shove in the side. Shove in the side. To shove means to push someone or something roughly. But here it is light, friendly, and playful. The next one is drop it. Drop it, Granny. Drop it. That is an informal command that means to stop talking about something or stop doing something. Flirt with, that means to behave in a way that shows you're attracted to them, often playfully. Then says who? Says who? This is an informal and challenging question. It is usually used to express doubt or disagreement. It's like saying, who says that's true? Or I don't believe that. Well, the police for starters. For starters is an idiomatic phrase and it means first of all or as a first point in an argument or explanation. Moving on. The police are supposed to be there for the sake of the citizens, Granny hisses. I pay my taxes, you know. The policeman looks at them as you do when a 7-year-old and a 77-year-old starts arguing in a secret language in a police station in the middle of the night. Then Granny's eyelashes tremble alluringly at him as she once again points pleadingly at her cigarette. But when he shakes his head, Granny leans back in the chair and exclaims in normal language, I mean, this political correctness. It's worse than apartheid for smokers in this bloody country nowadays. How do you spell that? Asks Elsa. What? Granny sighs as you do when precisely the whole world is against you, even though you pay taxes. That apartheid thing, says Elsa. Apparteid, Granny spells. Elsa immediately Googles it on Granny's phone. It takes her a few attempts. Granny's always been a terrible speller. Meanwhile, the policeman explains that they've decided to let them go, but Granny will be called in at a later date to explain the burglary and other aggravations. What aggravations? Driving illegally to begin with. What do you mean illegally? That's my car. I don't need permission to drive my own car, do I? No, replies the policeman patiently, but you need a driver's license. Granny throws out her arms in exasperation. She's just launched into another rant about this being a big brother society when Elsa whacks the phone sharply against the table. It's got nothing to do with that apartheid thing. You compared not being able to smoke with apartheid, and it's not the same thing at all. It's not even close. Granny waves her hand resignedly. I mean, it was, more or less like that. It isn't at all. It was a metaphor, for God's sake. A bloody crap metaphor. How would you know? Wikipedia. The first one is the police are supposed to be there. So our first stop is to be supposed to do something. So this phrase indicates what is expected or intended, and it means they should be there or they're meant to be there. Like you're supposed to be at work by 9 a.m. You should be there. Yeah, you have to be there by 9 a.m. For the sake of, this is the set expression and it means for the purpose of, or in the interest of, or for the benefit of. And here it means for the benefit of the citizens. Then Granny hisses. Hiss means to make a sharp sound like an angry snake, like sss. So when a person hisses, it suggests they're speaking in a sharp, angry, and contemptuous whisper. To argue means to exchange different or opposing opinions and often heatedly, not a discussion. Pleadingly is an adverb that means in an entreating or desperate way, as if begging. Then exclaims in normal language. Exclaim means to cry out suddenly, often in surprise or anger or excitement. Then, I mean this political correctness. I mean is a filler phrase or a discuss marker, and it is used to clarify or explain or emphasize what you are saying. Then we have the word apartheid, and it refers to a historical system of racial segregation and discrimination in South Africa. And Granny uses this allusion to make a highly exaggerated and controversial comparison. So it highlights her extreme frustration with rules about smoking. But it also gives an example of her giving politically incorrect statements. How do you spell that? I'm sure that you know this question when you were at beginner level. This is a basic but crucial question for learners, showing that they need clarification. But also, for example, when you call somewhere, when you need to make an appointment with a doctor, with a dentist, they may ask you to spell your name or your surname. Precisely, the whole world is against you. Precisely, this is an adverb and it means exactly or accurately. And here it emphasizes that the entire world is against Granny. Google something, that is a very common informal verb. It means to search for something on the internet using the Google search engine. It's a great example of a brand name becoming a verb. A terrible speller. A speller is a person who spells words, and it often refers to their ability. So a terrible speller is someone who makes many spelling mistakes. At a later date, to explain the burglary and other aggravations. At a later date is a formal way to say later or sometime in the future. And aggravations, other aggravations, yeah, that is a noun that refers to things that make problem or situation worse, yeah, or things that cause annoyance or irritation. Then driving illegally to begin with. To begin with is a set phrase, and it is used to introduce the first point or reason in series. I don't need permission. Permission is an official consent or authorization to do something. And then again, we have a tap question. Here it is used to seek agreement or confirmation, often with a hint of challenge. Throws out her arms in exasperation. Exasperation is a noun and it means a feeling of intense irritation or annoyance. So when someone throws out their arms, that's a gesture of showing extreme frustration, like that. Big Brother Society, that is another allusion to George Orwell's 1984 that refers to a government or authority that has total control and watches everyone constantly. Again, here is the link. Watch it. Great series of Read and Learn English with the 1984. Whacks the phone sharply. To whack means to hit something forcefully, and sharply here means quickly and suddenly. Got nothing to do with. Got nothing to do with. That is an idiom, and it means something is completely irrelevant or unrelated to another thing. Then it's not the same thing at all. It's not the same thing at all. That is a strong emphasis that two things are completely different. And it's not even close. That is another emphatic phrase that there is absolutely no similarity. Then Granny waves her hand resignedly. Waves her hand. That is a gesture, often to dismiss something like. And then resignedly, that is an adverb, and it means in a way that shows passive acceptance of something difficult or unpleasant. So she's given up the argument with a sigh. More or less like that. More or less like that. This is an expression. It means approximately. More or less like that. A bloody crap metaphor, for God's sake. Bloody, you already know. For God's sake, you also know crap. Crap means rubbish or nonsense. Then how would you know? How would you know? This is a challenging rhetorical question, and it is implying you don't know, so you shouldn't comment. Granny turns in defeat to the policeman. Do your children carry on like this? The policeman looks uncomfortable. We don't let the children surf the net unsupervised. Granny stretches out her arms towards Elsa, a gesture that seems to say, You see? Elsa just shakes her head and crosses her arms very hard. Granny, just say sorry for throwing turds at the police and we can go home. She snorts in the secret language, though still very expressly upset about the whole appetite thing. Sorry, says Granny in the secret language. To the police, not me, you muppet. There'll be no apologizing to fascists here. I pay my taxes, and you're the Muppet, Granny sulks. Takes one to know one. Then they both sit with their arms crossed, demonstratively looking away from each other, until Granny nods at the policeman and says in normal language, "Would you be kind enough to let my spoiled granddaughter know that if she takes this attitude, she's quite welcome to walk home? Tell her I'm going home with Mum, and she's the one who can walk," Elsa replies at once. "Tell her she can—" The policeman stands up without a word, walks out of the room, and closes the door behind him, as if intending to go into another room and bury his head in a large, soft cushion and yell as loud as he can. "Now look what you did," says Granny. "Look what you did." Eventually, a heavy-set policewoman with piercing green eyes comes in instead. It doesn't seem to be the first time she's run into Granny, because she smiles in that tired way so typical of people who know Granny and says, "You have to stop doing this. We also have real criminals to worry about." Granny just mumbles, "Why don't you stop yourselves?" And then they are allowed to go home. Standing on the pavement, waiting for her mother, Elsa fingers the rip in her scarf. It goes right through the Gryffindor emblem. She tries as hard as she can not to cry, but doesn't make much of a success of it. "Oh, come on, your mom can mend that," says Granny, trying to be cheerful, giving her a little punch on the shoulder. Elsa looks up anxiously. Turns in defeat. Turns in defeat. That means turning away from an argument or situation with feeling of having lost. Don't let the children surf the net that is browse or explore the internet, and then unsupervised. Unsupervised means not being watched or managed. Then you see is an exclamatory phrase used to draw attention to something, like to prove a point. It's like "I told you so." Then there will be no apologizes to fascists. Fascist refers to people who hold extreme right-wing authoritarian political views and who are intolerant of opposing opinions. And so Granny uses this strong provocative word to express her utter contempt for the police and rules. "Takes one to know one" is an idiom, and it means that someone is as bad as the person they are criticizing. Spoiled granddaughter. Spoiled granddaughter, that describes spoiled, describes a child who is allowed to do or have anything they want, and it often results in bad behavior. A heavy-set policewoman. A heavy-set is an adjective, and it describes someone who has a large or solid build. And piercing green eyes. Piercing means they're very sharp and intense, as if they look right through you. It doesn't seem to be the first time she's run into Granny. Run into, that is a phrasal verb, means to meet someone unexpectedly. Standing on the pavement. Pavement is the British English word for a sidewalk. Sidewalk is American English. Again, fingers the rip. We have already met this expression. She uses her finger and she feels this rip with her finger. Doesn't make much of a success of it. Doesn't make much of a success of it. This is the polite or indirect way of saying she fails or she doesn't succeed. So here it means that she does end up crying. Then mend. To mend something means to repair or fix something. Little punch on a shoulder, like that. Hey, hey. Looks up anxiously. Anxiously is an adverb and it means in a worried or nervous way. So Elsa is worried about her granny's future and her own situation. Moving on to the last page of this chapter. "And we can tell your mom the scarf got torn when you were trying to stop me climbing the fence to get to the monkeys." Elsa nods and runs her fingers over the scarf again. It didn't get torn when Granny was climbing the fence. It got torn at school when three older girls, who hate Elsa without Elsa really understanding why, got hold of her outside the cafeteria and hit her and tore her scarf and threw it down the toilet. Their jeers are still echoing in Elsa's head. Granny notices the look in her eyes and leans forward before whispering in their secret language. One day we'll take those losers at your school to Miyamas and throw them to the lions. Elsa dries her eyes with the back of her hand and smiles faintly. I'm not stupid, Granny, she whispers. I know you did all that stuff tonight to make me forget about what happened at school. Granny kicks at some gravel and clears her throat. I didn't want you to remember this day because of the scarf. So I thought instead you could remember it as the day your granny broke into a zoo and escaped from a hospital, Elsa says with a grin. An escape from a hospital, says Granny with a grin. And threw turds at the police. Actually, it was soil, or mainly soil anyway. Changing memories is a good superpower, I suppose. Granny shrugs. If you can't get rid of the bad, you have to top it up with more goody stuff. Oh, that's not a word. I know. Thanks, Granny, says Elsa and leans her head against her arm. And then Granny just nods and whispers, We are knights of the kingdom of Miyamas. We have to do our duty. Because all 7-year-olds deserve superheroes. And anyone who doesn't agree needs their head examined. Oh, sorry. This is a beautiful book and a beautiful story. So, my eyes get watery every time I read it. All right, so on to vocabulary. And you know is a very common filler phrase in spoken English. It is used to fill a pause and make sure the listener is following. But sometimes we also use it to introduce a new thought casually. Got on. Got is used here as a passive auxiliary verb and meaning the scarf was torn. This is a very natural and common way to form the passive voice in informal English, especially when something happens accidentally. Then rubs her fingers over the scarf again. Rubs her fingers. It's doing like that, like rubs her fingers. Yeah, or like when you have like the scarf, that means that she was like touching with her fingers the surface of the scarf. But it also indicates that she was in a state of worry or um, she has this thoughtful connection with an object, and she does. It's a very valuable scarf for her. Then we are moving on to the horrible part of bullying. 3 older girls got hold of Elsa. Got hold of. Get hold of someone is a phrasal verb, and we usually use it in the meaning of to find someone, catch someone, seize them. And here it means that these girls grabbed Elsa. They grabbed her outside the cafeteria, that is a self-service restaurant in a school, a factory, or in an office, and they tore her scarf. Tore is the past tense of tear, that means to pull or rip something apart, and then threw it down the toilet. To throw down means to drop something forcefully, so it was intentionally, and this was an act of bullying. And it shows how cruel these girls were to Elsa. Jeers. This noun refers to rude and mocking shouts or remarks, and poor Elsa still remembers them. She is still replaying them, reverberating them in her head. We see that in the word echoing. Echoing, that is echoing in Elsa's head, that is an idiomatic phrase, which means replaying something in your head. Leans forward. Lean forward means to move closer to some object, but that is in front of you. Like I can lean forward to my laptop. Dries her eyes. Dry your eyes means to wipe away your tears. And here we see that she does it with the back of her hand. The way usually children do it, like they do it like that, like with the back of their hand. So it shows that she's still a child, despite her behaving like a grown-up, despite her being so clever for her age, she's still a child. And then she smiles faintly. Faintly means weakly or barely, but she still smiles. Make me forget about. Make someone forget about something or someone. That means to cause someone not to remember something or someone. And so Elsa realizes that her granny's behavior was a distraction for her. Kicks at some gravel. Kicks at some gravel. Kick. To kick means to strike with a foot, and gravel is a loose mixture of pebbles and small stones. So it may show a moment of discomfort, like when we don't feel comfortable in this situation and we start doing this action with our foot, or when we are thinking about something. So it may also show thoughtfulness. Then clears her throat. To clear one's throat means to make a small cough or sound to prepare to speak, like and you continue speaking or start speaking. And escaped from a hospital. To escape from means to break free or get away from the place. Again, Granny is a very adventurous person. And with a grin, with a grin. A grin is a broad but also mischievous or playful smile. So they shared this amusement. Despite Elsa being angry with her granny, she's still grateful and she still enjoyed it. Actually, it was soil. Actually is the adverb, is an adverb. It is used to emphasize a fact or to correct a previous statement. And so Granny is semi-correcting herself because then she says mainly soil. That means that she didn't throw turds. She didn't throw only turds at the police. Yeah, soil, mainly soil, and probably turds. Mainly in this case means mostly, mainly, mostly. Changing memories is a good superpower, I suppose. This phrase indicates a reluctant or hesitant agreement. So it's like you don't agree 100%, but perhaps, I suppose, that may be true. If you can't get rid of the bad, get rid of means to remove or eliminate something. You have to top it up with. Top it up with is also a phrasal verb, and it means to fill something to top or to add more to something to make it complete or better. So here it means to add good things, to top it up with more goody stuff. You have to add good things to balance out the bad, because you can't get rid of the bad, like you cannot remove it. Then we have leans her head against her arm. We already met lean forward. Now lean against. Imagine here's somebody's arm and I lean against it like that. We usually do it when we feel comfortable with the person or when we show our affection to this person. We have to do our duty. Our duty. To do duty means to perform tasks or responsibilities that are expected or required at work, for example. And to finish it off, I will read the last two sentences again, because all 7-year-olds deserve superheroes, and anyone who doesn't agree needs their head examined. This is such a powerful closing sentence because these are actually the opening lines of chapter 1. And this is a full circle narrative. It also reinforces Granny's philosophy that every child deserves a protector and a champion, and being different is actually something to celebrate. And this is a great reminder for Elsa and for all of us. This is very important to understand. So I hope this chapter, this first chapter, and this lesson will inspire you to read this book. And that's all for chapter 1. I hope that you unlocked lots of English vocabulary today. If you like this English lesson, please hit that like button, subscribe, share it with a friend or a family member, and check out a full Read and Learn English playlist right here for more. See you in the next one. Bye!